A potential tragedy in D.C. averted. The FBI revealing that it foiled an alleged terror plot targeting Sunday's UFC Freedom event at the White House. Vice President JD Vance reacted on Fox and Friends this morning. He says it is time to turn down the rhetoric.
This is what happens when people turn the rhetoric up so loud that disagreeing with somebody is a cause for violence. That's the place that we've come to, unfortunately, with too much of our political rhetoric. We got to tell everybody to tone it down. And I hate to say this, but it's true. You see more political violence and violent rhetoric coming from the left than the right these days. Everybody has a role to cut this stuff out. But I think a lot of my Democratic colleagues in Washington have got to look themselves in the mirror and say, why is so much of this political violence coming from our side of the spectrum? Maybe they can do something different.
But, Lydia, I think the big question is, do they change?
Yeah.
And we have seen this after multiple assassination attempts on the president, and I haven't seen a tone down in any of this rhetoric.
No, and I think now is the time to really take note of that and change course. If we just talk about some of the details that we're learning from the FBI out this morning about what exactly they stopped and thwarted, they've identified 23 people who are communicating about an attack over the weekend near the White House. And we're not just talking about armed attacks as if that wouldn't be horrible enough. They were going to allegedly use drones with explosive devices. How horrible is that? That feels like a real escalation. And just for our president alone, you know, the White House Correspondents' Dinner most recently, 2 assassination attempts last year. And then beyond that, Charlie Kirk's assassination, that trial or that case ongoing. You also have Minnesota state lawmaker who was shot and killed along with her husband last year, and they were targeted in a political attack. That person who pled guilty. I mean, it really does have to end. And one thing I will say is that I think it's time for us to recognize that we may have differences of opinion on both sides of the aisle, but we have to recognize that we're all fighting for a better tomorrow and a better country, and we have to love that more than we hate the person on the other side.
I think that's very well said. Lou, my concern when Lydia was talking about all the assassination attempts, and then my brain immediately went to the United Healthcare CEO. And I have friends on the left and friends on the right, and my friends on the left were celebrating that murder. They went downtown to Washington Square Park on the Luigi dress-up day.
Yeah.
None of my friends on the right, now we can disagree about healthcare in this country, our CEOs getting paid too much, but that's a totally separate conversation than what I saw on social media of my friends on the right versus my friends on the left, and who was actively celebrating an assassination of a CEO, let alone a president or a bigger event.
Well, I think the vice president put it right. It's imbalance. It's more on the right is the targets than the left. But there has been attacks. We go back to, you know, Paul Pelosi. Like the rhetoric has gotten too high. The temperature in the room has gotten too high. But Lydia put her finger on something I think is most significant. It's the escalation. It's not just individual targets, the president, a CEO, congressmen and women. It's now the entire people that congregated for this event, right? The whole, my understanding of the details is that they were trying to scare everyone out of there and then have it set up in a sniper where they can, situation where they're going to shoot innocent people. So that is a tell. JD Vance was absolutely right to say, look, it's time for all of us to look in the mirror and tone down the rhetoric, tone down the temperature, and let's get back to the days. I don't know. I mean, I'm old enough to remember growing up when you could have civil disagreements on both sides of the aisle vehemently and still be rational and not look to turn to violence to solve those disagreements.
This kid, the one kid they're profiling on this from Ohio is 19. He used his graduation money to buy some of the gear he was going to use for this. He met these wackos online.
Which save it, because we're going to have a big conversation about banning social media.
That points to a systemic problem in the way that we put kids in the care of people to help form their character. And a lot of those people are failing miserably, or in fact, pushing these kids to think that they're supposed to be the activists to somehow fix the perceived problems of, you know, whatever they think about this administration. It is grotesque what people in this country are doing to the young. They're using them as pawns to try to create attacks or plans that thought wouldn't independently occur to those kids on their own. It's the adults who are egging them into this.